Boy wakes up and is surrounded by maids. While he thinks they're giants, he blasts a fireball through the ceiling with his tiny fingers, leaving the dumbass maids shocked as hell. The maids go around looking for the young prince, and while they're gone, he tries to continue his escape plan, but he's faced with two guards. He tells them to keep quiet about his whereabouts, and while one of the guards starts to ass-lick him, the other tells him to take it easy, telling him that Lloyd is the 7th prince and is literally out of contention for the throne. The ass-licking guard starts to read Lloyd's achievements, reminding him that Lloyd could speak shortly after birth and read spell books instead of picture books. He goes on to say he thinks Lloyd is the reincarnation of the great William Bordeaux. Lloyd happens to be a reincarnation of the previously grilled chicken. Lloyd happens to have his previous memories intact, and is reborn as the 7th son of the royal family. He decides to follow the same philosophy as his previous life, meaning finding out how much magic can be discovered in the palace. After successfully sneaking into the library, he gets caught by Silpha. The both of them go out to practice Lloyd's swordsmanship. He tells her that he doubts a 7th prince with no shit at the throne needs instruction in the sword, and she replies saying there's more to life than the royal succession. She goes on to say that it's only proper for him to be familiar with the handling of a sword as a member of the royal family. Silpha has been in charge of Lloyd's education for the past 3 years, and she intends to help him fulfill the goal of being a good swordsman. Lloyd knows that Silpha won't let him stop practicing until evening. They go against each other and Lloyd cheats by using control-type magic to trace all of Silpha's moves. Even with this, the brat still happens to be at a disadvantage, so he tries something new. He increases the length of his sword, levitates, and enhances his body. With this, the both of them fall on equal footing, and while the smartass thinks he's won, Silpha casts his cheating ass. She compliments his being able to use 2 spells at once, but in reality, the fraud was using 4 at once. Lloyd is forced to bathe with the maids to ensure that he has his bath instead of soaking himself up in books about magic. The maids try to scare him with a story, telling him that the Forbidden Library's demon is going to gobble him up if he proves to be a bad boy. He's told that Ceylon was nearly destroyed years ago by a demon named Grimoire, and the demon was sealed away in a book after the sacrifices of countless mid-ass mages. Hearing that there's a forbidden underground library in the castle, Lloyd heads to the Forbidden Library and uses an air-class spell called Concealment to hide his presence and pass through the guards. At the entrance of the library, 10 mages cast their most powerful spells to lock off the library, but Lloyd breaks it open like it's some sort of biscuit. Entering the library, Lloyd happens to be extremely excited as he sees more than enough books for him to read. He knows he'll have to replace the weak barrier later after he takes his time checking the place out. While he sits down to read, the sealed demon, Grimoire, comes out and tells him that he's impressed he was able to break the door's seal. They introduce themselves, and Grimoire asks Lloyd to unseal him. He tries to tempt Lloyd using gold, but Lloyd sees through his gimmick. Lloyd crushes the gold, and tells him that his magic isn't very sophisticated, as he just twisted dust and turned it gold. Although Grimoire's seal is beginning to wear out, Lloyd assures him that he's going to replace it. He tells Grimoire that his study of magic is based out of this kingdom, so he isn't going to let a failure like him destroy it. Grimoire offers to teach Lloyd ancient magic as payment for his release, and Lloyd accepts the proposal. Lloyd lifts the seal, and Grimoire decides to make Lloyd's teaching more of an experience. He blasts a huge flame toward Lloyd, hoping to cook him up like his previous life, but Lloyd replies saying, "Not today, son." Lloyd analyzes the spell and asks Grimoire to show him more. Grimoire blasts multiple Arctis Obscura like the previous one around Lloyd's barrier, and none of them hit successfully. After the psychopath analyzes Grimoire's attack, he asks Grimoire to come at him with something else. Grimoire snaps and starts a dual incantation before firing Arctis Obscura Forta, and after analyzing the attack, Lloyd figures out that it's just a more advanced version of the previous attacks. Grimoire is surprised to see his most powerful magic treated like it's nothing, so he decides to run away, but he's blocked by a barrier cast by Lloyd. Tired of being at the receiving end, Lloyd decides to test Grimoire's defense. He fires a huge flame towards Grimoire and steamrolls him inside the barrier. Lloyd returns things in the library back to the way they were, and Grimoire is surprised to see someone do this, as he has never met a magician skilled enough to perform this task. Although demons can't be killed with magic, Lloyd tells Grimoire that he's curious about how long he can survive. Grimoire knows he's about to get violated, so before going any further, he pledges his loyalty to Lloyd and asks Lloyd to let him serve him as a familiar. Lloyd accepts and tells him to transform into something smaller. Grimoire transforms into something small and cute, with the hope of buffering Lloyd up and then getting the drop on him, but as soon as he gets closer to Lloyd's, he rethinks his decision after seeing how dense Lloyd's mana is. While Lloyd is immersing himself in books at the library, his elder brother, the 2nd prince, Albert, walks in to meet with him. Albert is smart and physically capable to the point that people bring him up as the potential next king. He has the authority to access all kinds of facilities through the castle, and sometimes invites Lloyd to join him, making it one of the rare chances the dweeb is allowed to fire off magic in the castle. After Albert's turn, Lloyd is invited to take his turn. Lloyd isn't interested in the throne, and knowing that doing too much will put him in contention for the throne, he spins his fireball so that it'll just graze past its target. He does this multiple times, and just as he planned, they all grazed past their targets. The loser notices that adding rotation to the fireballs isn't bad, as it doesn't use any additional mana, and it makes their trajectory more stable. Albert takes a bit of a break and permits Lloyd to play around if he wants. After they all leave, Lloyd shows his extreme happiness, as he has lots of things he plans to try out, like Grimm's double incantation. Normally double incantations are limited to demons alone, as they have 2 mouths, but for this whippersnapper to try it out, he absorbs Grimm into his hand. The both of them cast Pure Lance Insinis simultaneously, and midway in the cast, Grimm gets smoked when he sees Lloyd's spell stack. Lloyd tells him that spell stack is a way of abbreviating spells that require incantations by mixing the incantations for multiple spells, and ultimately reducing the amount of time necessary to activate them. Lloyd was trying out 100 different incantations, and after taking a quick thought, he figured out that he could lock Grimm out using his admin access, and take control of his mouth too. With control of both mouths, Lloyd recites 2 completely different advanced incantations at once, and blasts it upwards like he's about to open a portal into the spirit world. In the palace, Albert and the others have no idea as to what that brat is cooking outside. Albert is asked why he shows Lloyd so much attention, and Lloyd replies, saying they don't have much of an eye for talent. He reminds them that Lloyd's fireball grazed all of its targets, and tells them that Lloyd could have done it that way intentionally. He tells them that Lloyd is a prodigy, and might even become a grand sage one day. He tells them that knowing Lloyd, he may have nailed all the targets, and while one of them goes to check through the window, he's surprised at what he just saw. He wonders if the sun is setting, as everywhere is dark already, but in reality, Lloyd blew a hole through the sky. Lloyd immediately covers up the clouds to fix up his mess. Lloyd's stunt from the previous day makes the news, and at the back of the newspaper, Lloyd notices a poster about an A-ranked adventuring company that cleared a difficult dungeon and collected its treasures. The retard decides to go to a dungeon, and Grimm tells him that everyone is going to freak out if they lose sight of him. Lloyd uses a plant class spell to create a wooden replica of himself that can move around. Although this sounds like a good plan for his escape, the real issue is Silpha, as she always notices every minute change in him. Lloyd improves his plan this time, as he has Grimm put his mind in the wooden body and his body inside Lloyd. This allows the wooden body stand-in for Lloyd while he goes outside the palace. Lloyd tells him to keep an eye on Silpha while he keeps pretending for him. The dumb maids continue to watch every step of Lloyd, admiring him all the way, and while Grimm is thinking that he finally had the chance to do whatever he wants, Lloyd tells him that he's glad he's his familiar and that he's counting on him. This compliment makes the fraud shed about 2 to 3 drops of tears. Dumbass Lloyd only focused on making his way out of the castle, and now that he's out, he has no idea where the dungeon is located. While in the air, he notices a girl being chased by orcs, and shortly after, the girl takes in a deep breath and wipes out all of the orcs. Lloyd notices the warrior sign on her back, and figures out that she has to be one of the martial artists, judging from the way she breathes. In foreign countries, a form of energy called chi is channeled through their bodies by breathing, and from Lloyd's studies, this key allows for incredible techniques. The girl notices Lloyd from a distance and calls him out. He thinks about going to meet her, to ask her about dungeons and chi. Grimm reminds him that going out will reveal his identity, so instead he decides to hide. Although this seems like the best choice for him, the girl takes it as a sign that he's an enemy, so she decides to attack first, instead. Lloyd already changed his appearance using both illusion class spells and transformation spells. He introduces himself to her as Robert, a rookie adventurer. She introduces herself to him as Tao, a B-rank adventurer. While she continues to admire him secretly, he suggests that they clear a dungeon together, and she immediately accepts. Tao goes on to do her best in the dungeon, clearing the monsters with the hope that he falls in love with her, but the gold digger shows that she's irrelevant. He focuses on packing the glowing rocks. After doing that, while they're going deeper into the dungeon, they have a little chat. Lloyd asks if she's adventuring on her own, and she replies by saying she hasn't found any decent men. Sorry, adventuring comrades at all. While camping, he talks about the chi she used before, and she's surprised that he knows about chi. She goes on to say that chi training begins and ends with breathing, as breathing is used to circulate chi, which keys the user to gain explosive power beyond normal reach. While she's trying to rizz him up, Lloyd practices chi breathing, but as soon as he gets it, he nearly flatlines. The brat finally gets the hand of chi, as he begins to feel a separate energy in his body apart from his mana. Seeing how interested he is in chi, Tao decides to teach him more. She tells him to keep breathing until they leave the dungeon, and while they're fighting in the dungeon, Silpha walks up to Lloyd's wooden body, but doesn't notice any difference. Take defeated the dungeon boss with a chi blast, after which they gained access to the chest. She tells Lloyd that a dungeon as underdeveloped as this can't be too impressive, and while they walk up to the treasure chest, Lloyd happens to be more interested in the chest itself than its contents. As soon as they open the chest, a huge blade tries to slice them in half, but Lloyd reacts quickly and takes them out of the way. A skeleton called a lich comes out from the chest, and Lloyd asks if this is the new boss. Lloyd asks Tao what kind of creature a lich is. She tells him that it's nothing to be worried about. She tells him to go ahead and leave the dungeon first, but he insists, saying he wants to watch. She kicks him outside and the lich starts to attack her, and she dodges all of its attacks. Tao starts to wonder how a low-level dungeon such as this has such a monstrous lich. She goes on to say that A-ranked adventurers are barely a match for monsters like this. After Lloyd is sent flying, he uses a barrier to brace his impact. He wonders if it'll be a good idea to go back, considering he doesn't know the reason she sent him away. He decides to ask Grim for advice, and Grim with a sleepy face tells him to get his sorry ass back home. Tao knows that she's cooked and tries to back away, knowing that Robert is gone, but to her surprise, the lich notices that she's using chi techniques. He tells her that he ate someone with similar abilities once, but it was nothing more than a lower form of magic. He goes on to say that he always eats the souls of adventurers, after which he'll gain their wisdom and their skills. Knowing that she's a failure, he tells her that she isn't worth eating, as it might just reduce his knowledge instead, but he has his eyes set on Lloyd, considering he dodged his attack earlier. Tao goes into attack and the lich activates a barrier around himself. She continues to strike it with all she has, and ends up blasting through it with a full power chi blast. After using such an amount of chi, Tao becomes immobile, and she struggles to lift even a finger. To her surprise, the lich happens to still be alive. He tells her that the full brunt worth of her chi powers is weaker than even a single finger's worth of his magic. He decides to show her the difference as he strikes his attack at her, but he's surprised to see his attack crack. Lloyd creates a barrier around himself and Tao that cracks the lich's attack. He tells Tao to sit her weak down while he cooks. As the lich is casting his spell, Lord leaves Tao in the barrier and uses an air class spell while still maintaining his QI breathing. He stops above and starts to think, and while he's doing that, the lich attacks him, but he puts up a barrier that shatters the lich's attack. Using ki breathing, Lloyd takes air into his lungs and accelerates the full spring spell. He continues to do this, and seeing that the barrier is in the way, he releases the barrier. The lock sees this opening and decides to attack, but he's surprised to see Lloyd dodge all of it at point-blank range. While Lloyd is dodging the attacks, he combines chi and mana and molds them together before using the result to shatter all of Lich's attacks. Seeing that the initial one was weak, Lloyd makes two other ones thinner so they can travel further and fires them in multiples toward the lich. The lich starts to act scared, knowing that he's facing a much bigger psychopath. Lloyd makes his attacks thinner and sharper till they slice through the lich and half the fraud. Opening the chest, they find a rusted knife, and Lloyd asks if he could take it as he suspects that the knife will be bathed in mana. After the knife is taken, the treasure starts to sink, and Lloyd wonders what's happening. He's told that this is what happens when the treasure is taken, and this makes Lloyd conclude that the treasure chest is the core of the dungeon. He goes on to say that it normally lives in the ground until someone drops a magic item which it absorbs and slowly grows a dungeon around it. Lloyd stops the treasure chest from getting buried again. He pulls it out, and they get outside before the ground closes. While outside, Tao asks Lloyd why he fought at the end with chi techniques instead of magic, considering he's an incredible mage. Lloyd replies saying it's because he thought it'd be fun, and suddenly, he remembers that he might get roasted if he doesn't head home quickly. While he's leaving, Tao tells him that his last blast was the secret chi blast technique known as QI Blade, and even a failure like herself can't use it. Lloyd arrives back home only to find Grim ragdolled on the floor in his room. Silpha noticed earlier that he was weak compared to the Lloyd she had been training, and decided to retrain him from scratch. Lloyd takes the crappy knife to his mini-lab and decides to treat it. He finds out that it has been treated with mana essence just as he had thought. Mana essence is the catalyst used for enchantment magic, where magic formulas are written onto a weapon to strengthen them. Looking closely at the knife, he finds out that it has been enchanted with boost power. Mana essence is hard to come by, and enchantment spells are difficult to do, and if it fails, both the essence and the weapon are wasted. This is why Lloyd plans on analyzing the mana essence himself, so that he can make some. After analysis, he finds out that the mana essence was made from oil, silver, and hematite. The only problem they might face is the fact that the hematite is made from powdering a monster's core, but thanks to the plot, Lloyd already has the dungeon's core. The next thing they'll need is oil, silver, and lots of weapons. Lloyd meets with his father and gets some silver coins. To get oil, he makes a deal with Silpha that if he could land a hit on her, she'll give him oil. Silpha cooks him faster than a pressure pot, but still gives him the oil, telling him that she's happy because he has improved compared to the previous time. He continues cooking his mana essence, and afterward, he meets with Albert and asks for a supply of weapons that he can use to test enchantment magic. Albert asks his guards if anyone wants a buff on their weapons, and with all of them twerking for Albert, they don't hold back before releasing their swords. With most of them believing that their weapons are going to waste, considering enchantments rarely work out, they have no choice but to release their weapons. Lloyd creates his dummy body and puts it in automated assistant mode. The Psycho starts to apply 3 layers of boost power on each weapon. He also adds boost elasticity wherever he can find space, filling up every spot with spell formulas until the Walmart sword gives way. Lloyd continues to try all through the night, and out of 120 weapons, only 50 came out successful. Bro couldn't even attain a 50% success rate. Lloyd goes on to say that he had 80 of them successful until he tried to add a few additional spells. Albert looks at the sword and is amazed, knowing that a first-rate enchanter has a success rate of around 10%. While one of the guards doubts the sharpness of the sword, he tries to sheath his sword but is surprised when his his scabbard slices into two. Lloyd tells Albert that he's hoping to see them in battle, and Albert takes him along to one of his tasks, which is a monster hunt. Albert and his men head out on their mission, and Lloyd happens to be fully excited, knowing that this is one of the only chances he gets to leave the castle. He's also excited to see how well his enchanted weapons work as well, and since Silpha will never let Lloyd out of her sight, she's allowed to accompany them on the mission. Midway into the forest, they get attacked by kobolds with steel weapons. Turns out they'll be the first specimens that the soldiers will use to test their weapons. Lloyd pretends to be scared even though he has sensed them earlier using one of the QE techniques Tao taught him called spectral detection. It allows him to sense his surroundings at all times by using chi breathing. While the soldiers are fighting, they're surprised at how sharp the weapon is, as it's cutting through the steel equipment like it's paper. While one of the kobolds tries a sneaky attack, Tao jumps in and bitch slaps it into the next Tuesday. She tells them that she sensed a creature's presence, and came running immediately. Lloyd almost casts his identity, but quickly keeps his mouth shut. She notices him doing the chi breathing, and tells him that she could have sworn she sensed Robert. While she's analyzing him, Silpha tells her that she appreciates her assistance, but she shouldn't become a hindrance while she's at it. While the two tsunderes have a go at each other, Albert jumps in and stops them. He invites Tao to join them on the way to the lake. Arriving at the lake at night, he thanks her for her help, and introduces himself to her as the second prince of the kingdom of Saloum. She notices something strange as Albert and Robert look alike, but the man's too ugly. She knows he's not the hot guy she sensed. She asks about Lloyd, and the tiny nigga is somewhere hiding behind a tent. Tao tells Silpha that she was hired to fix up an old shrine, which happens to be at the top of the hill. As she's about to leave for the top of the hill, Albert stops her and tells her not to go alone, as it'll be too dangerous. Since her ability to sense threats is a great asset, he suggests that she stay with their group until morning, while acting as a lookout. Before she could give her answer, a huge bear-wolf came out from the forest and jumped towards them. The soldiers decide to keep their distance while waiting for an opening while Lloyd sits back to watch. Grim notices something strange about the collapsed shrine. While the bear-wolf tries to attack the soldiers, Tao blasts a ki blast at it, but the bear-wolf tanks the blast. Albert draws out his sword, and with it floating by his side, he fires his pure lance insinis towards the bear-wolf, completely smoking the bear-wolf. While the soldiers start to ass-lick him as usual, he tells them that his firepower is not that powerful normally, and it was only possible because of the enchantment Lloyd applied to his spellbound sword. Grim tells Lloyd that there's a demon sealed in the shrine before the place on top of the hill. The flatlined monster stands again, with more appearing behind it. The leader asks them how they dare to harm one of his minions, and from the mouth of one of the demons, he shows his face and introduces himself as Pazuzu. Pazuzu tells them that they'll pay for their transgression with their lives. He commands the demons to attack, and the demons prove to be a greater problem for the soldiers because of their high-speed regeneration. Analyzing the situation, Albert suspects that the demon controlling them is behind this. Pazuzu is the demon Grim was talking about that was sealed in the shrine and later broke out. Since Grim and Pazuzu are both demons, Lloyd asks Grim if he knows Pazuzu. Grim replies saying he doesn't, but he can tell that Pazuzu is transmuting his mana to control the monsters. He goes on to say that the fight won't end unless Pazuzu is dealt with. While everyone is fighting for their lives, dumbass Lloyd asks Grim to teach him mana transmutation. Pazuzu starts a yap session about Lloyd being a pathetic diaper baby that needs to hide while men are fighting, and Silpha being nothing more than a babysitter. After his yap session, Silpha shows her murderous intent, ready to slice Pazuzu into bits, telling him to come out from the oversized shag carpet he's hiding in. She draws out her sword and promises to end him. While he starts another yap session, she closes her mouth so she doesn't collapse from his stinking breath, and as soon as he jumps in to attack her, he finds out that his forelegs are gone. While he focuses his mana on regenerating his bear-wolf, the other monsters start to act sluggish. Albert notices this, and tells Silpha to damage the demon as much as she can until they can join her. Silpha violates Pazuzu and has him shitting in his pants. She borrows one of the soldiers' swords that Lloyd enchanted, and while Pazuzu threatens to kill Lloyd, she stands still with her full-blown murderous intent. Pazuzu goes in to attack her and puts her in his mouth, but to his surprise, she stabs through the roof of his mouth and cuts through using House of Langless, dual blade art, Twin Dragons Rising. Afterwards, she uses another dual blade art called Diving Sparrow to send him to the slaughterhouse. Pazuzu comes out from the bear-wolf he's hiding in, and this time, Silpha decides to attack like Levi Ackerman. She spins her blade using the double tiger, claw, and fang to slice up Pazuzu, leaving every one of them surprised. After the monsters are defeated, all of the soldiers start to pass out like they're in an MJ concert. Pazuzu stands up and says it's been over a century since he broke the seal of the shrine. After Pazuzu took his time to raise the minions, they all got cooked by the soldiers. Seeing this, Pazuzu awakens, fully ready to take his revenge. He sends Silpha to take a shower, telling her that all those who inhale the smoke he released around will fall into his clutches, the miasma of domination. Seeing that Silpha won't stop, he goes to strike her, but Tao jumps in and blocks the attack. Silpha collapses after taking in Pazuzu's miasma more than anyone else, and now they're left Tao as the only one standing. Pazuzu jumps in to attack her. He figures out that the reason she didn't collapse under his miasma is because of her breathing technique. As she's hanging upside down, her breathing technique gets disrupted, but when she's faced with the option of becoming his minion, she smacks his head and strikes him down using her Thunderquake Pulse. As she tries to control her breathing before Pazuzu attacks, she gets attacked by one of his minions. While she's stuck in the mouth of the minion, Pazuzu fires his bad breath at full blast toward her. Tao refuses to give up as she continues to smell the fresh breath of her hot guy. She tells Pazuzu that the hottest guy of all is coming to kick his ass. Tao gets caught in the mouth of the minion, and Pazuzu picks Silpha up like the piece of shit that she is, and tells himself that he'll add her to his minions. While he's doing that, Lloyd says to Pazuzu that he guesses that's how he got the bearwolves to obey. Pazuzu replies, saying it's true as he killed the parents of the bearwolves and used his miasma to replace them in the minds of the pups. It then clicks in Pazuzu's mind that Lloyd is moving freely in his miasma. He sees Grim rolling with Lloyd, and asks why he's moving with a human when he's supposed to be against the human as a demon. After getting abused, Grim gets angry, and while he thinks about advising Pazuzu to run away, he changes his mind and tells him that he just wants to see him in shambles. Pazuzu sends his minions to attack them, and Lloyd sees this as a chance to test his mana transmutation. Lloyd uses Uno Reverse to take away Pazuzu's influence over the bearwolves. He tells one of them to cough out Tao. Pazuzu tries to bring back the minions to himself, and now that they remember their pride as monsters and the fact that he killed their parents, they attack him as a pack, but he smokes them. Pazuzu is now determined to waste Lloyd, knowing that no matter what spell Lloyd uses, it'll be ineffective against him as a demon. Lloyd smiles and Pazuzu spreads his dark aura around the place. Lloyd asks himself if it's that demons are resistant to magic, or they're just very hard to kill. Determined to find an answer to his question, he spreads out his mana and leaves Pazuzu shocked just by the sight of it. Grim asked Lloyd sometimes earlier his reason for hiding his mana, and Lloyd replied saying it was because it'll be too conspicuous. Pazuzu is faced with a nightmare, seeing just how much mana Lloyd has. Pazuzu starts to run for his life, knowing that Lloyd is about to cage him like a disobedient bird. Lloyd goes on to cast about 20 spells, and Pazuzu continues to escape from every one of them. Lloyd then absorbs Grim, and continues casting at a much faster rate, chasing Pazuzu around. Pazuzu tries to escape, but he finds himself in a spatial class spell called Dimensional Enclosure. Lloyd notices that Pazuzu didn't just kill the parents of the bearwolves, because some of them don't even resemble wolves anymore. He asks Pazuzu if he has been doing chimera experiments with the other monsters. While Pazuzu refuses to answer, Lloyd continues his high-speed casting. Pazuzu continues to panic and tries to negotiate his way out of the trouble. Lloyd cooks him colorfully at a speed of about 240 spells per minute. He plans to keep it up for 30 minutes, but after 5 minutes, weak Pazuzu flatlines. While Pazuzu starts to turn to dust, the others start waking up, and Lloyd quickly excuses himself so he can think of an excuse to tell them. Grim takes in Pazuzu's ashes, and it restores him a bit to help him with his revenge. Lloyd tells the others that a sorcerer named Robert showed up to defeat the demon and save them all. The king praises Albert for dealing with demons in addition to the monster he was tasked with. As the second prince, he questions his judgment in going with only his royal guards, and Albert replies saying he has no excuse for that. The king asks about Tao and Robert, and Albert replies saying Robert had vanished before they were able to regain consciousness, and Tao went after Robert before he was able to thank her. The king goes on to say that he's interested in the strength of Robert who saved them, and Albert tells the king that Lloyd contributed the most to the hunt. He tells his father that Lloyd should be considered part of the royal succession, as they were only able to survive without casualties because of the enchantments Lloyd placed on their weapons. The king then asks Lloyd if he'll join the struggle and stand beside his brothers in the pursuit of the throne. Dumb Lloyd stands up and humbly declines. While Lloyd is having fun with one of the bearwolves that followed them home, Silpha tells him that the bearwolf has taken a liking to him. He tells her that he's named the bearwolf Shiro because of its coloring. He tells her that he wants to teach Shiro a bunch of things, but he has a problem with the method he'll use to get it across. Silpha tells him that she heard monsters can be controlled via mana, and he thinks about weaving a command spell into his mana. The king watches Lloyd from the balcony and admires Lloyd's modesty. Albert tells the king that he thinks the kingship role might simply be too minor a role for Lloyd, and the king smiles, saying that he'll be looking forward to Lloyd's future. Lloyd trains Shiro on basic commands but struggles to get across complex commands, like asking Shiro to spin around 3 times and bark at different speeds. He tried writing a command spell into his mana and sending it to Shiro, but the dumb animal gets more confused and starts to act like it's drunk. He thinks about getting the help of a monster expert, and while he thinks about it, he and Silpha conclude on the same person. They head to Princess Alice's garden tower. Alize happens to be the 6th princess of Salum and is 3 years older than Lloyd. Alize is an animal lover through and through, including all kinds of animals and monsters which she keeps at her tower. Alize gives Lloyd a pleasant welcome that ends up knocking him out a bit. She asks Lloyd his reason for coming, asking if it has something to do with his bearwolf. He tells her that its name is Shiro, and she continues to rub her face around the fluffy bearwolf. Silpha whispers to Lloyd, suggesting that they leave because she doesn't think Alize understands the concept of mana, not to talk about if she'll be able to explain how to communicate with monsters to him. Lloyd suggests they give it a little longer, and he asks Alize if it'll be okay if she shows them one of her monsters. She calls in her beautiful white monster named Liru and tells them that she's a lesser Fenrir. The Lesser Fenrir happens to be a high class above the Bearwolves, and Lloyd is surprised that Lori was able to slip past his presence detection, knowing that the commands Alizi gave to Liru, like telling her to snatch Silpha's hairband stealthily and wait. There was complex. Lloyd knows that he's definitely at the right place. He tells Alizi to teach him so he can communicate with Shiro, and Alizi laughs, telling him it's not going to be simple. He tells her that he loves hard things and she decides to teach him. His dumbass sister goes on to say that the key to communicating with animals is love. Alizi's maid, Eris, tells Lloyd to give up because Aliz is either a prodigy or just has too much animal magnetism. Lloyd figures it out as usual. He notices that while he's issuing commands to Shiro, his sister isn't issuing commands to her animals, but instead, she shares her wills with them. He notices her sharing mana directly with the animals from her head, instead of her hand subconsciously, so he decides to try this out with Shiro. On his first try, he gets to pass his complex commands to Shiro, and Shiro executes it perfectly. After figuring out how to connect with monsters, Silpha tells the fraud to put the same effort into his sword training, but Albert saves his sorry ass. Albert tells Silpha that he'll need to borrow Lloyd as he has some things to tell him. He tells Lloyd that there is someone he'd like to introduce him to, and it happens to be Lloyd's older brother and the fourth prince, Diane. Diane tells Lloyd that he heard about the enchanted swords, and although he won't say it's impossible, he finds it hard to believe, so he wants to check whether Lloyd is full of shit. Diane happens to be a blacksmith, and at the age of 10, he traveled to Bartram, a neighboring nation known for its smithing. Diane drops a sword on the table and tells Lloyd to enchant the sword. He believes that Lloyd is a scam because enchantments are advanced enough skills as it is, but Lloyd being able to apply one to a spellbound sword makes it look fishy because it's beyond what they can handle, even against Bartram. Lloyd enchants the sword, and upon seeing it, Diane almost shits in his pants because of the various enchantments that Lloyd put on the sword. He finally agrees that Lloyd is him and tells Lloyd that he might be able to achieve his dream of creating the ultimate spellbound sword with his help. This is engraving the spell onto the steel while it's being forged so that more advanced magic than normally possible can be applied. With Lloyd being interested in nothing but the production process, he agrees to help Diane out. As work starts, Lloyd asks Diane what kind of sorcery they should use. Diane replies saying it should be fire, considering it's a sword that shoots fire when the user swings it. Lloyd suggests they use Perlance Insinus, but Diane says it'll be impossible, considering Perlance Insinus has a 14-part casting formula, and a spellbound sword can hold just 5. Lloyd suggests they compress it to just 2 parts, and he does just that, but the weight of Perlance Insinus shatters the steel upon application. Lloyd tries different methods like dividing it into 3 and 4, but it all fails. After using lots of mana essence, Lloyd wonders why he isn't getting it yet. The thinker starts to think again as to why it isn't working out, and Grimm brings his attention to the mana essence. Grimm lets him know that the mana essence was ordered from China. Lloyd casts a purifying spell on the mana essence and figures out that there's barely any hematite in the mana essence. In the absence of hematite, Lloyd thinks about sneaking out again to hunt monsters in the dungeon, but Silpha beats him to it. She suggests that they go out to clear a dungeon, and the brat says that a prince like him can't go to a dungeon. Silpha tells him that she brought it up with the king after their encounter with the monsters the other day, that for him to broaden his horizons, it'll be a good idea for him to see the wider world, and the king favored the idea. They head to the Adventurer Guild where they meet with Katarina. She gives them the form to fill out for their application, and tells them to set their hands on a crystal ball afterward that'll gauge their strengths and set their adventurer rank. Lloyd understands the principle of the crystal ball, as it's charged with a faint amount of mana that radiates through the body when touched, and uses the information it learns to measure one's starts and abilities. He knows that touching it will most likely explode the ball, so he compresses his mana tighter than usual, down to the level of a flea before touching the crystal ball. After touching the ball, it is revealed that his rank is E, and other adventurers start to laugh at him. Although his overall eating is E, his magic rating happens to be A, comparable to that of an experienced sorcerer. Katarina happens to be excited, telling them that Lloyd will be the next best thing after sliced bread. Sorry, Lloyd is the most promising new adventurer since the Silver Blader. The legendary Silver Blader is a woman who tore through countless dungeons like a demon, making A rank before suddenly disappearing. Silpha tells Katarina that they'll like to accept any available dungeon quests, and Katarina informs her that they'll need at least a B rank adventurer to be involved. Silpha decides to register, but before she does that, a fodder adventurer tries to hit on her, but she gives him a little haircut. Katarina tells him that he picked on the wrong babe, revealing to them that Silpha is the Silver Blader herself. Katarina tells her that re-registration would involve a 2-level demolition to C rank, and Tao walks in. She tells them that she couldn't find Robert, and after searching through every dungeon she could, she ended up getting strong enough to be A ranked. She decides to help them, but asks for a date with Albert as a reward. Silpha tells Lloyd that she was an adventurer, as a way of training, and during her time, she encountered deadly foes, whom she failed to bring down as well. She goes on to say that she believes they were called the Assassin's Guild. After clearing a random dungeon, Lloyd arrives with the treasure chest, and they go on to successfully create the spellbound sword called Dillord. After the day's work, Lloyd finally gets a chance to rest. He notices that Albert seems kind of busy and wonders if something big is on the horizon. Lloyd notices a masked girl from his room and chases after her. She tries to escape, but immediately finds herself trapped in a barrier. She goes on to strip, using her poison to try to knock out Lloyd, but he immediately uses his health class spell purify to negate the effect, but she increases the intensity with the hope that he'll pass out. Lloyd smiles and tells her that Purify can neutralize all known poison, and for it not to work, it means hers is an unknown toxin. He finds out that she's transmuting the nature of her poison with mana. There are rare individuals born with special types of mana, and those who have particularly threatening abilities are feared and known as the Blighted. The girl tells her that she's the Poison Blighted, and from birth, she has been a walking COVID, spreading poison around, which is why she's known as Ren the Poison Moth. Ren shatters his barrier, and tells him that since he's only taken a bit of her poison, he'll suffer for just 2 to 3 days. Lloyd uses a health class spell, Healing Breath, to heal himself up so he doesn't feel the damage from Ren's poison. Grim asks Lloyd why he didn't go after her since he could move, and he replies saying he figured he could have her guide him to their hideout instead. He tells Grim that he's sure Ren is a member of the Assassin's Guild. The Assassin's Guild is a group of 6, all with special abilities and with bounties on their head, and are quite skilled at hiding their presence. Lloyd goes after Ren after tracing the way she went. Ren returns to the hideout and tells them that she found out that they're mass-producing spellbound swords, and it's a sign of war. The boss tells her to stop bitching around like Jade, the former leader, as he's long gone. Lloyd arrives at their hideout, and Ren is shocked because she believes the poison should still be in his system. He walks up to them, and they decide not to let him leave now that he knows about the Assassin's Guild. Lloyd releases the barrier he placed around himself, ready to face them with full maximum power. He activated his trace, Toe of the Hayakaken skill, ready to attack them. The first person goes in and starts to attack. Lloyd blocks all of his attacks. The guy locks in and reveals his true ability, which is flexibility, and uses it to land a hit on Lloyd. His flexibility allows him to fit through tight spaces like a rat, and while Lloyd is focusing on Elastic Man, his body suddenly starts to sink, and the boss tells Lloyd that the brat sinking him is Crow, the Dark Raptor, and the mana in his words makes him the Curse Blighted. As the boss tries to strike him, Lloyd enhances his power and overcomes the curse using brute strength to prevent himself from getting smashed. Shortly after, he finds himself trapped in webs, and the boss introduces himself as Galilea the Spider. Galilea can transmute the mana around his body sticky fluid and is known as the Web Blighted. Lloyd frees himself from the trap, and shortly after, he starts to get attacked by Talia, the 100 Pains. Talia can share her damage with anyone she can see, and she's known as the Pain Blighted. After the introduction, Lloyd automatically heals himself, and the Psycho starts his devilish smile. Since she also gets healed while he heals, he decides to find out what will happen to her if he injures her. With his blade, he decides that he's going to have a go at them one by one, and just looking at him, Galilea already has PTSD from the trauma he faced in the past against a swordswoman. Lloyd goes in to attack Elastic Man first, and while the fraud gets smoked, Crow and Galilea surround him, hoping to sandwich him. Low-budget Inumaki uses his cursed speech, but Lloyd dodges it, and it lands on Galilea. Before the fraud could say the next word, Lloyd butchers him like a chicken, and he's left with Talia. He goes on to strike Talia, and she blocks it with her sword. She tells him that if he damages her, the damage affects him without her causing it since they're linked. He smashes her to the ground, and the pain also reflects on him. Galilea grabs his hands, but Lloyd frees himself and strikes him with his shattering thunderbolt. He walks up to Ren and tells her to show him her poison again, but Galilea begs him to stop, telling him that Ren can't control her poison mana, so they'll all be cooked if she starts spreading it. Lloyd notices that none of them seem to have any sort of control over their powers, and Galilea replies saying they can't. He goes on to say that they would have found a better way of life if they could, and as Galilea tries to attack, Lloyd strikes his back, and suddenly the web around him starts to fall off. Ren jumps in to attack Lloyd, hoping to get revenge for Galilea, but Galilea tells her to stop. He tells them that his mana suddenly is under control, and they're all surprised. Lloyd then goes on to say that he engraved the spell directly onto his body, so that he can control his power, and the big bald baby starts to shed tears, seeing that his curse is gone. Lloyd tells him that he should be able to produce mana intentionally now if he wants to, and he tells the other frauds to line up for their blessings. After giving them their tattoos, they decide to hold a party to celebrate Lloyd. Galilea tells Lloyd that there's a lot he needs to know, and while Lloyd isn't interested in their story, Galilea goes on to bore them with it. He tells him about their leader, the Phantom Blighted, with the power of teleportation, Jade the Shadow Wolf. Hearing this, Lloyd suddenly gains interest in the story. Jade had most likely the worst blight of them all, as he kept on finding himself teleported to random locations against his own will. He shared a coin that served as their Assassin's Guild emblem, telling them that they're going to take shady jobs that the Adventurers Guild can't get around to, and every time they do, they'll leave a coin at the scene so people know that their existence is contributing to world peace. Jade hoped that doing this won't make them have to hide one day, but the fraud gets teleported again. Just as planned, they began taking jobs that were too much for the Adventurers Guild, and finally had hope for the future. But that was when they heard that the Lord of Lordost was preparing for war, and that was when Jade. Before Galilea could finish his sentence, a letter was teleported to the table. Shortly after, Silpha breaks into the room with Shiro, but she doesn't find anyone in there. Shiro points her attention to a letter on the wall from Lloyd, telling her that he's going to visit the Lord of Lordost's manor with the Assassin Guild. Albert reads the message and starts to shake. asking himself different questions, and Diane tells him to calm down. The Assassin's Guild receives a letter with their mark, and automatically knows that it's from Jade. Galilea reads the letter from Jade, and it says that he has overthrown the rulers of Lordost who were preparing for war, and now that he's the Lord, he's ready to receive them at the Lord's manor like he promised. Before leaving, Ren asks Lloyd if he doesn't mind joining them so that he can imprint the spell on Jade too. Lloyd tells them that the letter was accurately teleported to their exact location, and something like this is one of the most complex magical subjects, one that nobody has yet to truly figure out. This means that Jade can control his powers, and the others wonder why he was lying about not being able to control it before. They question if they can trust whatever is in the letter, and the tsundere named Ren gives excuses for Jade, telling them that Jade must have learned how to control his power. Lloyd tells her that he won't need to tag along if that's the case, but because of his interest in teleportation, he decides that he'll go with them. He tells them that they can all relax and follow him, and if something is wrong, he'll take care of it. Lloyd Ubers them close to Lordost and lands them in the forest. In less than 10 minutes of flying, all of them start to look pathetic. He tells them that they'll all walk the remaining distance the next day, and Ren decides to grab them McDonald's from the woods. Ren grew up in the woods, and when she was still young, the poison ended up killing her parents, so she ended up living in the forest on her own. Jade reached up to her and wrapped her up like a burrito before introducing her to the group. Seeing that Jade is determined to keep Ren, the others accept, and each of them picks up tasks that'll help Ren settle in. Jade figured out a spell to neutralize her toxic mana, and the spell was made into a simple black outfit that's easy to take on and off. Jade welcomes her with a hair clip, and seeing the kind of love she received, Ren starts to cry out loud. Since then, Jade has been like a real brother to Ren, and all of them have been like a real family. Lloyd sees the quality of the cloth and concludes that he must meet Jade. At a camp out earlier in the past, Jade brings good news to the Assassin's Guild. He tells them that the Adventurers Guild is reconsidering the bounties on their heads. They all start to celebrate it, and he calms them down, telling them that they're only considering it. Shortly after, Jade decides to confess something to them. He tells them that he's claimed to be just a random vagabond up until then, but he's the third son of the Lord of Lordost. He tells them that Lordost is ruled by his family, who are a downright diabolical bunch and plan for war every day. He tells them that his reason for seeking out allies and power is to stop the war. He apologizes to them and they all react like it's no news. They tell him that they kind of knew from the way he acted, and while they think they'll be assassinating his siblings together, he tells them that he'll be settling it alone. He goes on to say that they've been fighting to earn a normal life, and if the Adventurers Guild finds out that they're linked to an assassination based on a personal grudge, all their hopes will be out of the window. He makes them promise not to give up on their dreams and to keep the guild going, even if he never came back from Lordost. Jade tells them that he'll have become the ruler of Lordost if he comes back, and he'll make it a territory where Blighted can live happily. They continue their journey, and dumbass Lloyd happens to be sleeping through it. He puts a heavy-duty barrier around himself while he's sleeping so he doesn't get smoked from his sleep. Arriving at the manor, Ren suggests that they let Lloyd rest a bit while they check out the manor. She tells them that she doesn't want to doubt Jade, but he might be manipulated by the heads of Lordost to send the letter. Galilea agrees with her decision, and Grimm is asked to stay with Lloyd. He tells them that Lloyd is pretty invincible whenever he's asleep, and Lloyd would be angry if he finds out that something happened to them while he's asleep. Moving closer to the manor, they notice some sort of party going on. Seeing that everywhere is clear, they decide to come back once they have Lloyd with them. Galilea reminds them that Jade too had always wanted to meet the 7th prince. Before they take their leave, an egg meets with them and asks if they're the Assassin's Guild. They are all welcome to their party, and while Grimm tries to alert Lloyd, Ren holds him tight and tells him to stay with her a little bit to help with her anxiousness. Jade comes out to them, and they all start to feel emotional. While Grimm is going to alert Lloyd, Jade snaps and crushes them all to the ground using Crow's cursed speech. He starts to advertise them like it's an exhibition, and while Grimm tries to free them, Jade teleports to him in the air and bitch slaps him into another dimension. Lloyd wakes up, and shortly after, Grimm lands by his side. Grimm tells Lloyd all that's happening to the others. While the others are wondering what's happening, demons come out of the bodies of the humans surrounding them, and Jade tells them that everyone there is a demon that he's brought in from the netherworld. He tells them that he's from the other side of a great ocean beyond this continent. He says to them that there was something in this land that he wanted quite badly, and it was the body of Jade and his teleportation ability. He reintroduces himself to them as Gisarme, the catastrophe from the netherworld, and tells them that Jade is dead because he took his body. Ren yells out, asking what he did to Jade, and he kicks her away. While the others struggle to move a muscle, Gisarme tells them about how Jade used to bitch around saying his friends shouldn't be touched, and when he figured out that Gisarme was going for them, he decided to kill himself, knowing that Gisarme will die if Jade too. Gisarme ensured Jade reached death's doorstep, and then he healed them back. Doing this countless times only eroded Jade's mind faster, and as a result, Jade's mind took its leave from the world once and for all in his futile pursuit of salvation via death. As soon as Gisarme starts his auction, he notices the tattoos on their bodies and figures out that there's nothing like that in Jade's memories. He tells himself that he's not interested in sorcery, but he's disgusted to see his property defaced. He uses his cursed speech to ask Ren who did the spell and what the spell is for. Ren continues to resist answering, and suddenly a barrier starts to appear around the guild members. Shortly after, a bright light shines from above and blasts a huge hole in the entire place. After Lloyd's grand entrance, he heals up the crybaby's tongue and tells them to get out of there while they leave the rest to him. Knowing that they'll all be in Lloyd's way if they stay back, they take their leave immediately. Gizarme teleports outside and tells the other demons to chase after the assassins, reminding them that the assassins are experts at hiding, and that if they're cautious enough, they may never find them again. Lloyd tells them that he isn't going to allow that, so he lights the demons up like it's the 4th of July. Gizarme teleports to the top of the building and uses his cursed speech to command Lloyd to die. Lloyd is surprised to see the cursed speech pierce through his barrier, and the dumbass thinks whether he should check the effects out or just dodge it. Thankfully, he decides to dodge it, and it meets with a close-by demon. While the demon is dropping, Lloyd analyzes the spell with his Sharingan, and he figures out that getting struck kills the parasitic demon instantly as well, with the cause of death being cardiac arrest. Grimm tells the fraud to run, reminding him that what Gizarme is doing doesn't require a spell as his mana is directly creating the effects. Lloyd goes on to say that he noticed the resemblance to Crow's cursed speech, but this is so much more effective, and the comparison feels silly. He gives an example, saying that a spell can easily be blocked by a wall of mana, but an attack directed exclusively with mana will only pass through the wall, like water will pass through a sieve. The other demons continue their pursuit, and Grimm tells Lloyd that demons are broken down by class, separated from class 1 to 10. He tells Lloyd that the trash down there are probably class 10 demons, which is why magic works on them. Pazuzu was an 8th-class demon for the record, and Grimm is a 3rd-class demon. This makes Lloyd assume that Gizarme is a 1st-class demon. Grimm tells him that Gizarme is worse than that. He reveals that Gizarme is beyond 1st class as he's Netherworld royalty, and 100 1st-class demons still wouldn't stand a chance. Lloyd is still determined to go against Gisarm, concluding that Gisarm is more than just an irredeemable trash can. Lloyd goes up to Gisarm, and Gisarme asks him who he is. Lloyd replies saying he's just a prince, the 7th prince at that. Gizarme recalls something about Lloyd from Jade's memories, and although the brain-dead demon has forgotten, he still feels like there was a desire to see him for some reason. Lloyd tells Gizarme that he'd have loved to meet Jade, but now that it's never going to happen, he asks him what his problem is. Gizarme replies saying he can ask him the same thing. He tells Lloyd to look down at the mess he made. Lloyd's reason for attacking is because Gizarm is after the guild, while Gizarm's reason is because Lloyd is allowing the Blighted to escape, the ones whom he considers to be the perfect bodies for demons. With both of them unsatisfied until things are settled, they decide to entertain each other. Grimm reminds Lloyd of his advice for them to run, but the blockhead doesn't give in to anything he's saying. Gizarme fires a small attack, and it almost pierces through Lloyd's 3-layer heavy-duty barrier. Turns out the prince is scared of pain this time. Gizarme fires longer attacks in multiple numbers, and it forces Lloyd to start to chicken out and dodge the attacks. Gizarme teleports in the opposite direction and kicks Lloyd back towards the spears chasing after him, but before the spear can get closer, Lloyd creates a huge statue from water and uses it to absorb the attack. Gizarme wonders why Lloyd remains unharmed, knowing that he didn't manage to pressure him except with his teleportation ability. This time, he decides to demonstrate perfection to Lloyd, asking him if he'll either defend, dodge, or put his tail between his legs and run. In reality, Lloyd has no choice, as he gets stabbed immediately. While the guild members are waiting for Babylon the Elastic Man to open up the gate, they get attacked by the weak demons, but before the demons can come closer, Galilea uses his web to stick them to the ground while Crow uses his cursed speech to crush them. As soon as the gate is opened, the demons free themselves with their brute strength and continue their attack. Talia goes to face them and takes a look at all of them before using her Mass Affliction Symphony to inflict pain on them by cutting through her own Achilles tendon. She tells the others to keep going and hide their presence immediately after they get to the woods. The demons heal up the wounds immediately, and she stabs the top of her foot. Galilea pushes Ren out of the gate and tells her to go with Crow while he goes to help Talia. Talia threatens to strike the death blow by cutting off her neck, and the demons try to stop her. While Ren continues to cry, telling Talia not to end herself, Talia pulls the plug. Gizarme continues his yap session about Jade's dreams and all that, while Lloyd looks more like a sticked meat than a kebab. After his yap session, he notices Lloyd crumble, and immediately after, Lloyd tries a sneak attack to cut his head off, but Gizarme reacts quickly. Lloyd wonders what to do next, and he suggests that they move somewhere else. The demons start to get cooked from the other side of the wall, and the guild members wonder what's going on. The gate is suddenly sliced open, and the Avengers arrive to battle. While Silpha is training, she figures out that she can't use her full strength because the weapon won't be able to stand her strength. Restraining her strength is possible, but the demon she's going to be up against happens to be far more durable than the post she's training with. While the demons are visiting KFC, Alfred faces the guild members. Silpha points her sword to the members of the Assassin's Guild and asks them for the whereabouts of Lloyd. They reply saying Lloyd is fighting in the Lord's castle. Alfred asks why Lloyd's fighting and who he's fighting against. They tell him that Lloyd is fighting for the sake of the Assassin's Guild against the boss of the demons. The members of the guild remember that they made a promise to Lloyd to keep his strength and Grimm a secret if they meet anyone from the castle. With their heads on the line, they tell Silpha that Lloyd is fighting a total loser. Albert brings out Lloyd's clothes that Silpha retrieved earlier and asks them why Lloyd will be fighting for the people who left such a thing out as a threat. Galilea tells Albert that Lloyd's clothes were covered in his white sticky fluids, so they left them out to dry. Ren tells them that she doesn't expect that they'll believe them, but just as they're worried about Lloyd, she's grateful for how they saved her family, and she'll do whatever they want and accept any punishment. She goes on to say that the reason why Lloyd is fighting is because the demons took Jade, one of her family, and they have to believe her. Aliesi tells them that they have to believe the drama queen, because if Liru sensed any bad intentions, she'd have gobbled her up. Albert orders Silpha to find Lloyd and retrieve him, and while Silpha is going, Ren holds her back, telling her that Lloyd doesn't need any help since he's fighting a total weakling. Gizarme collapses the bridge, and the demons jump in for a bath as they start to swim towards the riverbank. Knowing that they'll be trapped if the demons get across them, Albert orders everyone to get to the riverbank. This happens to be Lloyd's plan, and Gizarme finds it strange as he's seeing a considerable force down there, but finds himself unable to pry his attention from Lloyd. As they're standing side by side, he tries to attack Lloyd, but Lloyd evades the attack. As Lloyd is running away from the next set of attacks, Grimm asks him about the sword. Seeing how things are going on down there, Lloyd's mind is at peace, knowing he can let the others handle everything down there and focus on his fight. The demons down there continue to get cooked as the soldiers constantly throw fire at them, making their regeneration process more painful. Albert notices something wrong as the demons are supposed to be resistant to magic, but the fire is affecting them. Diane goes in and blasts a hotter flame at the demons, but the demons still show their resilience. With the soldiers getting tired, Albert thinks about how to make their best melee fighters. Liru and Silpha get close to the demon. He stops a bit and looks for Silpha, but the brat is nowhere to be found. Silpha is seen trying to command Shiro to take her to Lloyd, and with Shiro too insistent on seeing his master, the dumbass dog jumps into the water. As Silpha tries to jump into the water, Humpty Dumpty jumps out and tries to cut her, but she blocks it instinctively. He tells Silpha that while his associates are 10th class demons, he is an 8th class demon, as well as a practitioner of the supreme swords of the netherworld, demon blade form. She tells him that she has some devastating news too, and he tells her that no matter how much noise she makes as the insect that she is, it's going to be less distracting than a mosquito buzzing. The soldiers continue burning the demons, and Albert can confirm that the citizens of Lordost have had their bodies stolen by the demons. He wonders if there's a way to save them, and shortly after, a demon tries to attack him from behind, but Babylon opens up the demon's head like it's a bottle of Coke. Babylon tells Albert to give up because the people are done for, and all that's left are demons with meat suits. Albert thanks Babylon for his advice and walks up to the demons. He does some gang signs while casting his Raining Flame spell, and shortly after, he cooks all the demons inside his intense heat. Silpha continues her fight with the demon, and after the demon's failed attempt at turning into a blender, he uses his demon blade form, Nightwalker, and Silpha cuts all of his attacks. The both of them go against each other with their special attacks, and they happen to come out even. Seeing how exceptional Silpha is, the demon concluded that he'd take her body instead of the body of a blighted. The demon takes his stance, and Silpha notices that his dominant hand has changed. He uses Lordos style, Art of the Draw, Winter Winds to strike Silpha, and Silpha dodges it. Lordos style is the school of swordsmanship that the demon's body owner used, and it happens to be quite a skilled body. Silpha surprises him as she uses his move, Demon Blade form, Great Tengu, to strike him. He blocks it, and afterward asks her if she can use demon blade forms. She replies saying she just learned it by watching. Turns out Lloyd isn't the only one wielding a Sharingan. She calls in Shiro and brings out a new sword that was gifted to her by Lloyd. Sometimes earlier, Diane wanted to thank Lloyd for helping him with spellbound swords, so they made a sword without flashy spells. The sword is expected to be as strong and flexible as possible, able to withstand Silpha's full power. She remembers that Lloyd told them earlier that the only way to take down a demon is to strike them down in a single, seriously powerful attack. Silpha names the sword Demon Bane, hoping to never disappoint her master ever again like her last battle against the demon. The demon tells them that they plan to lure out Jade and stir up the tidings of war once they had taken the bodies, and just as they had planned, Jade came running home like a child who just lost a street fight. With the Demon Bane, Silpha places 2 clean strikes on the demon in less than a second, flatlining the fraud. In Jade's last words to Gizarme, he tells Gizarme that he's not going to let him get away with it, and that he'll lose. Gizarme wonders what Jade was trying to do before he died. He knows he can use Jade's powers and access his memories, but there's something deep down that he can't access, but he doesn't care as long as he has Jade's body. A huge blast occurs into the river and steam starts to blow out. Lloyd continues to run away from Gizarme's attacks, and this time he flies closer to the water. While thinking of better ways to deal with the attacks, he studies the patterns of the mana spears, and figures out that they can pierce through a single or double-layered barrier with ease. He doesn't consider it a problem as long as he can keep a heavy-duty, reinforced barrier up at all times. The cursed speech doesn't create a tangible physical phenomenon, and although it travels slowly, getting hit will cause instant death as it can pass through the barrier. The last and most dangerous is the Shadow Wolf, as it requires the fraud to be moving at high speed, because slowing down for more than 2 seconds will get him turned to kebab. Lloyd decides to attack himself instead of being on the defense always. He goes on to double cast and fire a huge monstrous flame towards Gizarme. Gizarme knows he won't die from such an attack, but to keep his clothes intact, he decides to teleport away from it, and the huge flame lands into the water and creates the steam. Lloyd uses his spectral detection to track down Gizarme. Lloyd suddenly remembers that he needs to keep moving because of the Shadow Wolf, and while he body is moving, he thinks about it. He notices that he didn't get attacked while standing still amidst the steam, and wonders why. He then thinks about how Gizarme was locating him in the first place. He remembers that Gizarme was only able to deliver the letter because he knew their hiding spot. He also remembers when Gizarme told the others to go after the assassins, because if the assassins get to hide them, it's over for them. And with this, Lloyd concludes that Gizarme is using line of sight to target his teleportation. Gizarme starts to walk around, looking out closely for Lloyd, and Lloyd, who happens to be in the air amidst the steam, decides that he'll need to get close enough to Gizarme so he can connect his sword. With Gizarme being blind, he decides to wait for the steam to come down, as he didn't expect Lloyd to evaporate the river. Lloyd does his low-budget shadow clone jutsu to surround Gizarme, and since Gizarme can't spot the real one, he waits for all of them to stab him at once before finding out the real one. He decides that the body with a real sword is the real body, and immediately he feels it. He attacks that body and heals himself up. After his yap session, he figures out that the body he thought was an original was also a decoy. He starts to panic, looking for the original body, and while he expects the real body to be above, Lloyd roasts him from behind. Lloyd goes in to hide amidst his clones again, and Gizarme decides to take the simplest approach this time. He strikes every one of the clones with his mana blades, and goes after the one with a barrier, but to his surprise, that one is also a clone. He continues striking down all of them while Lloyd hides his presence, dodging all of the attacks without a barrier, and moving silently toward the back of Gizarme. The sword Lloyd is wielding is one he calls the Spell Taker. It's a spellbound sword with an inscription for spell taking, and it allows the user to absorb a spell and use it to either increase their mana or analyze the mana. Lloyd uses the Spell Taker to try and decipher the spell needed to use Shadow Wolf. Seeing Lloyd's obsession with magic, Grimm acknowledges the brat as the biggest magic maniac in the world. After Lloyd tries to contact Jade, he gets some signs and says that he understands. He releases his invisibility spell, and Gizarme finds out his location. Gizarme notices his bloody cheek and wonders what's going on. Seeing that Lloyd released his clones and doesn't have his barrier up, he asks Lloyd if he's bored, and Lloyd replies saying he is because he understands now. Gizarme asks the overpowered brat for his reason for fighting, and Lloyd replies saying he doubts he'll understand his explanation, but goes ahead to tell him. Lloyd tells him that a lion never questions why they have fangs and claws because they never feel inconvenienced, and it makes them simplistic and downright boring. He tells the villain in training that all of his methods are like that, and all he has is being born powerful. Humans happen to be weak, and they live life struggling all they lack, which is why they build incredible things out of their will to do the impossible. Midway through Lloyd's motivational session, Gizarme teleports to attack him, but Lloyd surprises him by hitting him in the gut using ki. Lloyd sits down and tells Gizarme to show him more moves, as the previous ones are just copies of others' moves. He asks Gizarme if he remembers Jade's last words to him, and Gizarme says it isn't important. He remembers the words and starts to get angrier. He teleports to attack Lloyd again, and he gets ragdolled around the place. Every time he tries to teleport, he notices that Lloyd is always getting to the exact spot and waiting for him there with a hit. Lloyd uses his double casting to blast Gizarme towards the huge hold he created earlier, and from there he pushes Gizarme down towards the magma. Gizarme has no idea of his current location, and knowing that falling into a larva would be too bad for him, he teleports and stops just above it, but Lloyd doesn't hold back. Lloyd continues to bitch slap his hating ass around. He tells Gizarme that he'll have to die if he runs out of ideas, so he has to put on a show for him to live. Gizarme tells Lloyd that the biggest difference between a demon and a demon lord is the fact that they can freely control atmospheric mana. Gizarme concentrates all the mana in the entire area, ready to use his apex move called the Mortal Dark Sphere, which is capable of reducing anything in creation to oblivion. Gizarme decides to show Lloyd the difference between a puny-ass demon and a demon lord. He gathers the atmospheric mana in the area and compresses them. He tells Lloyd that he can create a barrier, or create whatever he wants, but his attack will smoke whatever he has in place. He tells Lloyd that his next attack is the Apex, capable of reducing anything in creation to oblivion, and it's called the Mortal Dark Sphere. Gizarme fires the well-advertised Mortal Dark Sphere toward Lloyd, and Lloyd looks unbothered. With the attack midway, the weak Mortal Dark Sphere disappears into thin air. Gizarme wonders where his attack went, and Lloyd tells him that he erased it by hitting it with a similar technique. While Gizarme is practicing how he'll behave when he runs mad, Lloyd activates his spatial class spell called Void. He tells Gizarme that Void casts the target into another dimension and reduces it to dust in the face of a barrier or whatever else the enemy tries. He goes on to say that a long time ago, after learning about the spell, he was fooling around with it, blowing all kinds of things away, and then he had a thought about what happens when two of these kinds of spells collide. The overpowered brat decided to try it out then, and Gizarme is shocked when he hears this. He asks Lloyd if he knows just how much mana a single Mortal Dark Sphere uses up. I'm sure Gizarme knows just how much mana it uses because the brat himself doesn't even have enough mana for such an attack. Lloyd tells him that he was so excited about the kind of miraculous reaction that could have resulted, but the result was just like we all saw. The voids neutralize each other, resulting in mutual collapse. Lloyd goes on to say that if he was to describe how he felt then, he would say he was about as disappointed as he is with Gizarme right now. Gizarme tells the kid to shut up, wondering how a mere human will use the imitation of the Supreme Demon Lord art, the Mortal Dark Sphere. He asks the maggot whom he thinks he's fooling and tells him that he'll put better use to his piddling pool of mana that he has when he steals his body. Gizarme teleports to the top of Lloyd and immediately he touches him. He gets terrified by Lloyd's mana. Lloyd tells the fool that he has only one answer left to give him. Lloyd asks Gizarme if he's strong enough to get hit with the void. The Hacksmaster gathers his voice attack and uses it to chase after Gizarme. Deanne and Albert stand with their backs against each other as they struggle to see the enemy. The demons also struggle to see. Silpha decides this is the best time to get into the kitchen and prep her ingredients, while Liru and Shiro put their sharp noses to work as they massacre the demons. The strange sweet scent continues to flow around, and Ren tells Silpha not to breathe it in deeply. She tells them that it's her poison named Black Fog, Butterfly's Dance. Ren tries her best to keep the poison strictly towards the demons. Albert struggles to know what's going on, and he hopes the sun comes up quicker so they'll all be able to see better. They look up and notice that it's not the night sky. After Lloyd's Uno reverse, Gizarme has been forced to fight dearly for his life. The wannabe villain struggles to keep himself out of Lloyd's attack, knowing that it'll be too much for him to regenerate from. Gizarme notices that he's being sucked into the void along with any mana he'd use, and because of this, the dunce is forced to abandon the body, but rigor mortis kicks in and holds him back. Jade will be like, if I go down, then we'll go down together. Gizarme gets dragged into the void, and he tries to pretend like he's Jade, just so he can get Lloyd to tone down the attack, but Lloyd shows no sign of concern. Lloyd fires another void attack and uses it to compress his empty head into the void, and immediately after this, everywhere turns bright as day. With the night gone, the members of the Assassin Guild remember Jade. Ren remembers when Jade was telling them about an urban legend about the 7th Prince. He tells them about the supposed accident in Castle Saloom on the day of Lloyd's birth, and how the celebratory fireworks went off early. He tells them that the fireworks might have been a magic spell cast by the 7th Prince the moment he was born. Bro has been overpowered even before birth. When asked what the lounge of the story is, Jade told them that if there was some magical prodigy like that out there, then he may be able to pull them out of their curses and take them into the light of the day. Bald-headed Galilea told Jade then that he'll serve the 7th Prince for the rest of his life if what he was saying turns out to be true. Ren remembers this day, and tears start to roll down her eyes. Lloyd creates a grave for Jade, far away from the graves of the fathers. He tells Grimm that it's more of a memorial than a grave, because the body isn't present as Void consumes it all like acid. Grimm tells him that he's impressed he landed Void, and Lloyd replies saying it's all thanks to Jade that he was able to decipher Shadow Wolf. Lloyd formulated a spell that let him detect when it was being used, and then all that was left was for him to link the spell with his reflexes and casting of the Void. He tells Grimm that Gizarme was strong for real, and it was reckless of him to try and decipher the spell in the middle of battle, but he needed to figure out Shadow Wolf if he wanted to ever land an actual attack on him. Also, due to his inquisitive nature, he wouldn't have been satisfied if he couldn't figure Shadow Wolf out. At the very end, Jade managed to transcribe a complete spell for Shadow Wolf, and he left it behind, knowing that someone would have to rise to the challenge of finding a way to overcome it. Lloyd goes on to say that it was Jade who won the fight and not him. Ren hides behind a tree, hoping to pass her feelings across to Lloyd and let him know how grateful she is to him. Albert walks up to Lloyd and asks him whose grave that is. While airheaded Lloyd is still thinking of a cover-up lie, Albert says that it is that of the former leader of the Assassin's Guild and previous ruler of Lordost, Jade. He tells Lloyd that he knows the whole story after learning of Jade's revolt. He goes on to tell a cooked-up story about the Assassin's Guild coming to Lloyd for help since Jade was a sorcerer, but what they encountered was a horde of demons wearing Jade's body. Albert tells him that he was also told about how they lived and what kind of ambitions they have. Albert compliments Lloyd for the way he acted to help them, and the fact that he defeated the demon on his own. He tells him that he's very proud of how strong and kind his little brother is. He tells Lloyd that it's not going to be that simple because the Assassin's Guild has been taken into custody. He assures Lloyd that Ren will also be taken into custody once she's found, because the Assassin's Guild are considered to be residents of the underworld who have killed for a living. Albert goes on to say that the Assassin's Guild kidnapped a member of the royal family and dragged him into war, and those are serious charges. The members of the Assassin's Guild have said that they intend to make amends by serving Lloyd for the rest of their lives. With Albert's sword on Lloyd's shoulders, he tells Lloyd that it is left to him, reminding him that if the outlaws become his retainers and commit some blunders, he'll be left responsible, especially if it damages the name of the Salem royal family. Lloyd tells Albert that everything he said is completely reasonable, and he'll make sure they understand. He goes on to say that if they cause some sort of problem despite that, he'll take full responsibility. Albert smiles and tells Lloyd that being the 7th Prince doesn't mean he's free to do whatever he wants, and when he says that what he means has nothing to do with the royal family's reputation, he tells him that he shouldn't think people don't care about him just because he's the 7th Prince, so he shouldn't be distant, and he should ask for help if he needs it. Tao finally arrives after her long journey, starting from the time she heard Lloyd was in trouble. The Deadwood tells them that they can rest now that she's there, and they all give her the useless look. She decides to head back, and Albert chases after her so he can thank her for the previous day. Lloyd tells Grimm that Ren and the others embody potential new frontiers for magic, and he refuses to let any more possibilities like that be snuggled out. Albert unties the member of the Assassin's Guild, and they all know that they'll have to serve him with all they've got. They have a casual gathering afterward near Jade's grave. Silpha and Ren happen to go missing, and it happens to be that the girls are making best use of the river Lloyd converted into a hot spring. Silpha asks Ren if there's anything she plans to tell them, and Ren tells her that she'd like to work alongside Lloyd the way Silpha does. She tells her that she wants to be near him and show him how grateful she is, and she promises not to do anything that'll disappoint him. Silpha tells her that it's not something she can personally decide, so she should ask Lloyd herself. The pervert called Lloyd accepts, and Ren asks why he's there with them. Silpha tells her that she invited him there, considering he was filthy, covered in dirt, sweat, and fluids. Ren asks him if he's sure, reminding him that she has hurt so many people. She asks if he's sure about having a poisonous blighted with him, and Lloyd tells Ren that she has a lot of work to do. He tells her that she's still calling herself blighted for one thing, and none of them have come to terms with their natural-born strengths. Ren could better understand the kind of poison she produces and break it down into its components, and she could become a pharmacist that could save many lives. Bro is about to make her get a PhD in pharmacy. He tells her that poison and medicine are two sides of the same coin, and she should learn how to work on understanding her power and formulating it as a spell. The power she always cursed and detested becomes the one Lloyd accepts with no hesitation. She notices that Lloyd never called them blighted, and Lloyd advises her to work hard. Trust you enjoyed this recap. Check out our page for more recaps like this, and don't forget to comment the name of any anime you want to be recapped. Also, do not forget to like, comment, and share. We'll see you in our next video.